Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Travel Buddy Podcast presented by Switchfly. I have my amazing guests, as always, Ian Andersen, Rachel Satow, and special guest, who's been on a few episodes before, but we're glad to have her back, Ashley Martinez. Thank you so much for joining today's episode. It's going to be fun.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks for having us.
Today, we are going to be talking about why we love travel. And so you guys do this for a living. Of course, you travel for fun, you travel for work, but you help other people travel through technology and services, supporting people moving around the world. And this is a personal passion of each of yours. It's for me too, if I can just interject myself for a second. I love to travel. You all love to travel, have traveled all over the world. Ashley, you were just telling me you have been all over the world over the last few weeks, and you got some new global travel coming up. So I want to talk about that. But first, I would love to hear from each of you. What do you think of travel personally? What draws you to travel? What is a word that you associate with travel when you think about that? Like, why is it has captivated you over the years? So Ashley, I will start with you since you have regaled me on your global expeditions over the last few weeks. Why, for you, are you so passionate about travel?
All of my global expeditions for me have really enabled me to grow. So my word that I associate with travel is definitely growth. Personally, professionally, anytime I go on a trip, it's always expanding what I like to call my world or my worldview. And so I'm always growing in perspectives, personally, professionally. And so definitely growth for me.
I love that. Ian, what about you? What is a word that you associate with travel?
Adventure, I guess. My dad's a really strange kind of, I think only people who graduated high school in the late 70s kind of have this like the early 70s have this like half conservative, half hippie mindset. And one thing he was always really big on was us just like hitting the road somewhere, whether it was for a weekend or longer, and we drove a lot. But we drive across the country. We go to Mexico, Canada, kind of all over the place. And something he's brought up a lot in my life that I always think about is and I think I do, maybe because of him or I don't know, but he always talks about feeling trapped if he's like secure, and he has to feel unsecure to feel comfortable. And okay. I think I've picked up that a little bit, and a lot of that is just like getting out of your comfort zone and seeing something new, and talking to people you haven't talked to before and all that stuff. It helps you learn, it helps you grow, like Ashley said, and I definitely connect with that a lot. Okay.
Well, I can't relate to that at all because I just want to sit on a couch with a blanket. Except I do like going to travel and see new places that, get some of those new experiences. So that's awesome. Rachel, what about you? What draws you into travel these days? And why'd you get started with it? What's a word that you associate with it?
Yeah. So I think to answer your first question, the thing that draws me into it is just, and it ties back into the word that I'm going to use. It has the ability to change perspectives. And I know, like, I grew up in a pretty small town in Pennsylvania. I had pretty much only gone to places in the Northeast when I was younger. And the first time that I had the ability to kind of like go outside of those four walls and travel a little bit further over to California and like really understand the grandeur of the world, that was the thing that hooked me. And because of that, I think the word that I would use is transformative. Travel is transformative because it does have that ability to change both how you see the world, being like submersed in different cultures, and also like how you see yourself. I didn't realize how much I loved doing certain things until I put myself in scenarios where I was not, in my comfort zone. So kind of like Ian's dad, I definitely realized like, oh, I enjoy this hobby because when I was all by myself in New York City visiting a friend while he was at work, that was the thing that I got to do until I had that opportunity to put myself in uncomfortable situations. And travel definitely puts you in a ton of uncomfortable situations.
Yes, that's right. I love that. I totally agree with you. I tell my wife all the time that I want our kids to be cosmopolitan. I want them to have a global perspective, that there is way more going on in the world than just what you can see in Texas. We live in Texas. And so I want them to have much more of that perspective, because like you, I didn't grow up traveling at all. And then I've realized the way that we view the world is not the way everybody views the world. Though I have to admit, I'm very much a Western Europe traveler. And so I'm still very, staunchly in a westernized view of the world. But I would like to see
that's
a
your
lot more different
couch
perspectives.
of travel. Right here.
Seriously,
Yeah.
Okay, I do love to travel, and I like the new experiences that it brings, and I like new perspectives and all of that. But yeah, I guess maybe I am a little safe, Ashley, you were just talking about traveling to Morocco soon, and that's a different world. That is not. It is in the West, but it is a very different kind of perspective on the world than you would get in, say, Paris. If that makes
Definitely. Even though Morocco, they are French speaking, so there is, one
there you go.
association with French. But Africa specifically, definitely a different perspective on infrastructure as well. What we might take for granted, or how, city planning, city layout. There's definitely, as some of these communities are much older than anything we have in the U.S., right? Yeah. So, similar in Europe. But I also just got back from Asia, and Asia was very eye-opening for me. And truly, I keep using this idea, or I keep saying, I never felt more small, not in a self-confidence perspective, but more so in realizing how many people there are in the world.
Yeah.
You take the train in Japan, and there's hundreds of people on the train, everybody in a beautiful synchronization of everyone's very orderly, organized, on time. It's amazing how even with that many people, the society functions extremely efficiently. Whereas conversely in Africa, it is definitely a beautiful type of chaos where there's just, there's no lanes in the streets. There's people everywhere.
Yes.
So Asia for me was extremely eye-opening.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that, and then we'll shift to the next segment. But that idea of smallness, I think that's so important. One, as it relates to time, like you mentioned, like if you go to Italy or London. I went to London in the spring, and it's 2,000 years old of just the recorded parts of the history. But it's much longer. And as an American, it's like something as old as like going back to like the early 1800s, and Europeans are like, oh, come on, man.
My dad has a friend originally from Switzerland who every time I've seen him, so I don't know, 20, 30 times in my life, I've had to hear his joke about how Americans and Europeans are like, the difference between Europeans and Americans is the difference of 100. Europeans think 100 miles is a long ways, and Americans think 100 years is a long time.
Yeah, that's actually a really great joke.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
perfectly encapsulates that. Yes, that's great. Yes. Yeah, but also the smallness, so not just in regard to time, which is true, especially for Americans, but also in regard to how many people are like make up other cities. I think it's 11 or 14 million people in Tokyo. And then if you go to like Shanghai, Beijing, some of these other places in East Asia, it's, millions, tens of millions of people that live in just one city.
Like beyond just the strict populations, because, New York City is every bit as big as many Asian cities, but the way it's organized still seems so much more spacious, right? At least on the individual level. The only time I was ever like jam-packed into the subway was like on my way to or from a Yankee game, right? Like
Yep.
Every other time you have like your own seat and plenty of room, but you go on the train in Japan or most East Asian places, it's going to be just a cigar tube full of people, right?
Cigar tube. I had to Google this. So in New York City, population is 8 million. And in Shanghai, population is 25 million.
Jeez.
And in Tokyo, 37 million.
I thought New
That's
York, is that
amazing.
just the city, or is that kind of...
Yeah, there's
for
probably like
everybody?
New York
Okay.
proper and that sort of thing, but still, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Tons of people. And they all have individual hopes and dreams and lives and families and careers and all these things, just like you and I do, you know? Anyway, this is very self-indulgent. Okay, so next segment. So you guys have a lot of passion and a lot of history regarding travel and context. You got family members that have brought you into the world of travel, and then you've discovered it yourselves. But it's bled, obviously, because you work at Switchfly, into your professional life as well. So I'd love to hear from you guys how you think about the travel industry as a whole and how your personal story is related to that. But how do you think about travel as a business, as an industry, thinking about clients, your technology? Why is it that you like working in this industry as a whole? Because some people say you shouldn't work your hobby, and because then it takes all the fun out of it. So why do you guys continue to work in this industry?
I think, one, I don't get to travel so much for work, so maybe it's
Fair.
enough of a separation to not be my hobby. But I think you're right that it does give a lot of insight, just enjoying it. What jumps to mind is we talk a lot about experiences, right? Of speaking to people about travel through the idea of experiential rewards, right? It's a mental health thing. It's a physical health thing. It's a decompression from stress. It's an adventure. Like going on these experiences. It's not just for your Instagram post or whatever. It's like there's a whole kind of holistic health and mind and body and just all around great things for you. And that's something we talk a lot about in our marketing, especially is just from that experiential perspective.
Yeah, that's right. Rachel, what about you? What keeps you working in the travel industry?
Yeah, so full transparency, I'm still relatively new for specifically working in the travel industry, especially when it comes to like the travel tech space. However, I have a lot of agency background, which means I had the opportunity to work with a bunch of different industries, one of which being, like PMS systems that also facilitate the hospitality and tourism industries. So there was always just like a little bit of a connection there with my career background. And I think one of the things that, to Ian's point, we talk about this a lot in our own marketing of experiences. One of the things that really attracted me to coming to Switchfly and to working in the travel industry was getting to merge those passions. I'd like to say that I'm a glass half full person, and I like to go with the idioms of, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And
Nice.
As someone who kind of found marketing when I went to college, it wasn't something that I had ever initially intended to study. I realized that merging some of the things that I'm passionate about, travel being one of those things, but also, getting to help this brand really showcase and connect with its audiences, like that, I think is why it enthralls me so much. Is I actually truly love the message, and I love to be able to help our team facilitate getting that message out. And that's the thing. I also get to on a regular basis, be looking at beautiful destinations as a part of my job. That's something that I can't take for granted. It's like, how many jobs can you say, oh, I get to be looking at all of these wonderful pictures and planning my next bucket list ad. Like, how many jobs can you say that's what you do?
How many screenshots do we send each other on a regular basis?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, look at this. Yeah.
So this is joyful or creates envy. One of the two is
Both. I think all of the above.
No, yeah, I get that. Yeah, to your point, both of you, that it is such a healthy thing to travel, and it's healthy for employees to be able to travel, for customers to be able to travel. Like bringing that as part of the reward infrastructure, it just creates a huge benefit and boost to people's productivity and just their loyalty and all of that. It's huge. Yeah. Ashley, what about you? How do you see working for the travel industry, and what's brought you into that and how you're thinking about it now? Because you have a background as being a travel agent, and so you've done this for a while. You do it personally, professionally. So talk to us a little bit about that arc.
Yeah, no, I'm very fortunate that I definitely can say wholeheartedly I've found my industry, but it definitely wasn't always that way. I actually studied mechanical engineering.
What? I did not know this.
Yeah. I'm an
Wow.
engineer by study and use that skill set still to this day. But through mechanical engineering, I worked in oil and gas throughout the world. And through that experience, I got the travel bug. And from there, I made a decisive shift from engineering into travel. I through my experience had been very fortunate to be able to travel. I lived in South America, which was extremely, transformative, absolutely. Again, personally, professionally. But I knew that, I had had these incredible experiences, but I wanted to make those experiences accessible to other people. And I think really what we're doing through Switchfly and other travel technologies providers, even you think about booking engines or travel agents, at the end of the day, what they're really doing is making travel accessible. If someone wants to go somewhere, they're giving them the means or the ways or the education to how to accomplish that trip. So my core passion is truly making travel accessible, and that is not just reserved for the few that might have exclusive time off or the finances to do it. But travel can be extremely accessible. And we've talked about on the podcast how you can travel in your own backyard. I mean, there's going outside of your comfort zone, or as Ian was saying with his dad, just going on a road trip adventure. There's so much to learn and so much to see. And so what my core passion about being in the travel industry is just making travel accessible to others.
I love that. It's like democratizing travel for everyone because it is so powerful. And it's changed your life in so many ways. Going from mechanical engineer to having a Stanley Tucci book on your bookshelf, which I can see in the background, which are two different things, which I love.
How
so
did you know?
No, I love that. Yeah, his shows are great. He's always talking about Italy, which is such a beautiful place. Okay, so we've talked about what brought you to travel originally, why it's a passion for you, how that relates to your professional life. But now going forward, how do you see travel shaping or in different ways, either the way that the industry itself is changing, the way that people are relating to travel changing? Like, what's your prediction for, let's say, the next 5 years of travel? What are the major trends that you guys are paying attention to? And Ian, I'll start with you.
So another key theme in a lot of our marketing is the generational outlook on travel. That starting kind of with Gen X and then really coming full force with the millennial generation, and even more with Gen Z, or putting more and more value on travel and experiences than on material goods, right? I think this single topic could and maybe should be a podcast in itself at some point. But for a whole load of cultural and economic and all different kinds of reasons, people are able to travel more. People want to travel more. When I was a kid, going on an airplane was it was pretty rare, we would do it, but it wasn't, we're going to go this weekend to somewhere or next month or whatever. It was quite a planned out and thorough process. So being the cost and being able to do it so much easier than ever before obviously plays a big part of that. Where it's going, I have kind of two different mindsets, and I'm not sure which it's going to be, or probably a combination of both. Those one is that trend is just going to continue, right? People are going to travel more and more and more, especially as we get better at energy production and things like that. We're going to keep seeing those costs go down and expand options more for travel. On the other hand, on a geopolitical level, countries seem to be sort of looking a little more inward lately than outward. I think that trend is probably short term. How short, I don't know. It could be 5-10 years. I definitely don't think it'll last much longer than that, if at all. But it is something to keep in mind, at least on the international front over the next, 5-ish years. Hopefully it doesn't bar leisure travel so much or business travel, but, it very well could. So
Okay,
we'll
so
see.
next episode, geopolitical risks and travel.
Now we're getting into my wheelhouse.
I'm into it.
Now
Let's do it.
this is my personal podcast at the moment. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, awesome. Rachel, what about you? What are some trends that you're paying attention to, and how you think maybe in the next 5 years travel is going to change?
Yeah. So, I mean, to Ian's point about generational changes, we talk about this almost every episode, I feel like. But, we can't ignore the fact that younger generations who are taking up more of that market share of travel are more focused on mental health, are more focused on personal well-being. And we also can't ignore that travel is consistently tied to personal well-being and quality of life. So when I think about what's next in the next 5 years, I don't see it slowing down, regardless of geopolitical things going on in the world. I think I can only foresee things picking up regardless of everything that may or may not be going on as countries look more inward. That's my personal take on it, because when you think about it from like a psychology standpoint, if it is so tied to that mental well-being and quality of life, if people are struggling with whatever may be going on in the world, they're going to want that little bit of escapism. They're going to want to try to put themselves outside of their comfort zone so that they are expanding and getting that, that fulfillment of I've done this to make myself, feel more centered. And that is something that I think we can't ignore it. I personally think it's going to keep picking up.
People don't always do things in their own best interest, though, Rachel. So.
Fair enough.
That's fair. That's a fair point. But no, I kind of see what you're saying, Rachel. It's like, as what Jonathan Haidt calls our anxious generation is kind of increasing in this anxiety, this uncertainty about the future for any number of reasons. Call it social media like he does, or call it, just political uncertainty or social unrest, whatever. I do think that whether it's an escape or whether it's like, I actually do want to understand more perspectives than just my own or my communities. I would like to travel. I'd like to see more. I mean, I see that with my peers and colleagues are traveling still quite a lot and wanting to travel. Yes, there's maybe some certain areas to avoid, but I see travel becoming still like a really important thing. Like, especially as our generation has kids and grows families, we want to expose that to our families and friends and all that kind of stuff. So I'm with you on that.
This whole concept of the person that you are while traveling, I think everyone while traveling can say sometimes they're at their best version of themselves or their purest form. So I think this escapism or travel definitely gives you that opportunity. But trends that I see, or maybe that I'm hopeful to see, is intentionality with travel. So with the rise of social media, obviously we've been exposed to a wealth of locations that we probably are unheard of. I know the first time that I went to Dubai, I was telling my grandma, and she was like, I shouldn't even know where it was, right? But I think with the millennial and Gen Z generation, they have access to a wealth of educational content and inspiration, or travel inspiration. My feed is constantly places, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Albania, places that probably historically people hadn't considered necessarily traveling. So there is a wealth of information and creates a lot of inspiration and aspiration. The one, I would say, other side of the rise of social media and travel influencers is, I think there sometimes is a loss of that being present that we were talking about that's so important while traveling. Am I just going to actually take a picture and say that I've been there? Or am I going to actually, intentionally and being present while traveling? So one thing for me, my grandfather, he had a religious tour agency. So he would bring groups of people on pilgrimages all around the world. And he had this concept of the 10 commandments while traveling. And the first commandment was, thou shalt remember that you're traveling to a different place to experience something different than where you're from, right? You're not, and I think that is so, the core element of traveling is you're going somewhere to understand a different culture, not necessarily bring your culture and impose that on them. So going back full circle to that growth, you're going somewhere to grow. So for me, I'm very hopeful that the next generation of travelers or future travelers will be really intentional of where they're going and really immerse themselves in that culture.
Yeah. Yeah, amen.
I would add to that commandment. Not only are you going to experience somebody else's culture, you're going to experience somebody else's home. If you truly think about it, like Paris is beautiful. I love Paris, and I have to remind myself that no matter how old the city is and how high their tourism rates are, people live there. And if people were to come here, and I mean, granted, Gainesville, Florida is.
It's just
Not
like
Paris, the Paris of the
just
South.
like Paris, yeah. The Paris of Florida, definitely.
Yes.
Exactly. I'm gonna send that over to the city as the new tagline. But if people were to come here, I would want them to treat it with respect as well. And I think to the point, Ashley, that you made about social media being such a driver, FOMO is a real thing. And when you're seeing all of these magnificent places and influencers doing their grandeur photo shoots, it can really drive that, I want to go see what they saw because it looks so beautiful. And again, going back to me being a glass half full situation, I like to think that even if that would be the driving factor for someone visiting something, that the experience of getting to travel would transform their perspective of why they made that trip. And they would be exposed to the history of places and the culture that would shift the whole reason that they originally went. And regardless of if it was FOMO from an Instagram post or if they had really gone out from the get-go to, immerse themselves in culture, that at the end of it, it does have that emotional connection and tie of, oh, wow, this place is so much bigger and more beautiful than I could ever have imagined.
One thing, I mean, that's all absolutely true, right? Like you go to experience something new, but something I always find really comforting, and I've been, I think, on every continent except Antarctica, that everywhere is very different, but it's also very similar, right? Like wherever you go, they're just people, right? They're going to work, raising their kids, having fun, whether I've been, in the Middle East or in Africa or Central America or wherever, like you can always kind of find very similar things to the way you live your life. And I think that helps connect you, right? There's that oft abused Twain quote about travel being the death of like bigotry and narrow-mindedness. And I think a lot of that is just realizing that like people are people, they're doing the same thing you're doing. And that can be really comforting in no matter how different you think your culture is, at its heart, there's like 4 or 5 things that are exactly the same across the board just because we're all humans, And I've always found that really comforting, especially in something Americans, I think, don't often realize, ones that don't travel too much. Sometimes we forget how lucky we are as a country, right? And you been to a few parts of the world that aren't quite so lucky, and still they're just people living their lives, right? And yeah, it's poor conditions and they don't have the amenities we have or whatever, but like they're not sitting there twiddling their thumbs plotting the overthrow of America, right? They're just going to work and raising their kids and finding out what movie they want to watch on the weekend or whatever. Like it really is pretty much the same across the board. And I've always found that really comforting.
Yeah, same. I couldn't agree more. We're all human beings. And no matter what culture, language, dress, cuisine, whatever is in that place that you happen to find yourself, there are people that need to be honored and respected. And I think that's all people want when you go and travel. And so, for example, to your point, Rachel, like some people talk about how the French are rude. You go to Paris and they don't like Americans. If you just try to attempt to learn their language and eat their food, they actually really like having you there. That's been my experience. I've been several times, and every time I walk into a shop and I say bonjour and I grab a crepe, they are very happy because I'm experiencing their culture, and I think that's all people really want. So, yeah, I love that point. So I will ask this last question to each of you. I'll end with Ashley because I know she got some very fun travel coming up. But starting with Rachel, where are you traveling next, or where are you planning to think about traveling next?
That's a great question. In terms of where I'm traveling next, I'm probably going to stay domestic. The holidays are coming up, probably going to be with family. We might go to South Carolina and visit my significant other's family in Charleston. So love that
Charleston's
city.
the best. Yep.
It's beautiful. As far as something a little bit bigger, I am hopeful that next year I'll be taking a long trip to do Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and finally get to see all of that because I haven't had the opportunity yet. I've gotten to travel a little bit in Western Europe, but haven't really gotten to explore those as much. And I've been binging Outlander, so of course it's inspiring me. But that's what's next on my radar, I think.
That's great. Okay. I think
It's
they
just
filmed
like
some.
the show. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to go touch some really old rocks. And
There you go.
if you don't hear from me, that's what happened.
Well, I was just going to say, I think up in northern Scotland is where they filmed a lot of like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that up there. So yeah, it does have this like kind of like Outlander kind of vibe
Mystical.
to it.
It's very...
mystical. There you go.
Yes.
And I like that you said Wales. A lot of people when they go to the United Kingdom, they think about London or Scotland or something like that. But Wales, I don't know many people that have actually been there. Which is great.
Cardiff is the most fun I've ever had in the UK. Like,
Really?
There we go.
I mean, just for like history nerd side of me, London is of course London, but like
Yeah.
just for like going and having a good time, Cardiff is like the most fun place. Yeah, I loved it.
Okay. good
Wales
to
is
know.
great.
London has the chocolate-covered strawberries in the market, so I don't know if Cardiff has that. So maybe I may not go there, but
No, but it had probably the highest like percentage of public intoxication I've ever seen. And I've been to New Orleans on Mardi Gras, Ashley. So
that's right. Yeah,
like,
Ashley knows
I got a
New
high
Orleans.
bar, right?
Okay.
Like, yeah. Yeah.
That's great.
It was a blast. We had a great time.
That's great. Okay, so Ian, where are you going next?
Probably similar to Rachel, a couple of little semi-local trips. We'll hit Phoenix and see my folks for Christmas. Probably down to Mexico sometime this winter to see my wife's dad. And then, but we are tentatively planning like Norway, Denmark, maybe Sweden next summer.
Cool.
So
Cool. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I have good friends that travel to those countries regularly and say they love it. Just like the most beautiful, happiest place on earth.
yeah.
I haven't been there, but that's what I hear. It's great. Okay, Ashley, tell us about your expeditions coming up soon.
Yeah, quite a few. But I do have to say, Ian, I'm jealous. The Northern Lights is definitely on my bucket list. So I would love to do Norway or Scandinavia. But coming up this week, I'm actually going to Copenhagen, which is new for me. I'm very excited to go to Denmark. This trip is a little workation, or you could say, the leisure, a combination of business and leisure. So Switchfly has a conference, the World Aviation Festival in Lisbon next week that I'll be attending. Cool. Portugal's amazing. Very excited to visit Portugal. And then after that, we are going to Morocco. Which Morocco's incredible culture that we were talking about earlier in the show. So those are the three that I have coming up. But after that, there's a word, I believe it's in German, and I don't know that is when you don't have your next trip planned, I get really uneasy. That's kind of what I was thinking about, Ian, when your dad was saying not in that comfort zone. If I don't have my next trip planned, I get very uncomfortable. So I'm sure on this trip, I'll be planning my next.
Okay, I've got to look up that word and also the
Yeah.
Mark Twain quote that Ian referenced earlier. I don't know that quote. I'll have to go look that
I'll
up.
shoot it over to you.
Thanks. So Copenhagen, known for its bikes. Got to ride a bike while you're there. Lisbon, known for its...
The music.
I
the
shouldn't
music.
say other things.
The city on 7 hills. It's actually,
Yeah.
it's got 7 different hills within the city. So there's quite a bit of elevation change, but wonderful port town in the south of Portugal.
Yes, Lisbon is wonderful. The pastel de natas. You have to have a pastel de nata. It is one of my favorite treats ever.
And I told you my pastel de nata story.
No, they're at
Oh.
Costco, though.
Oh, yeah.
You can go to Costco and buy some now.
Totally authentic. It's just like the
I-
real thing. Yeah.
I had to bring, obviously bring things home to my family. And so I brought 6 pastel de natas to bring home. And they did not make them home because I ate them all in the airport.
That would happen to me because they are delicious. I love them so
good. With this
so
little
much.
cinnamon. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, and then Morocco, known for its coffee. I hear amazing coffee in Morocco. You have to
Yeah,
go.
Marrakesh Bacha Coffee is a famous coffee spot in Marrakesh. But this time I'll actually be going to Casablanca and Fez. So Fez is what's considered the cultural capital of Morocco. So very
cool.
excited to see some new places.
Great.
Are you going to
Okay.
get the little hat? And,
Wear a
that-
fez and
the
fez.
fez.
Wait, is that why it's called that? Oh man, I'm enlightened so much on this episode. Yeah. Okay.
I will find out. How about that? I'll
Okay.
find out.
Okay. Great. And Casablanca, famous movie. I've seen parts of it, but I hear it's
Yes.
great. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
And you'll be doing the reenactment of the famous scene, right? Yeah. Wow.
Of course.
See, I don't even know that. Gosh, I need to travel more. I am so culturally unaware and ignorant. Okay, well, I'm just a classic American going to Western Europe.
You got Texas and France down. You just need to branch out from there a little. Yeah.
And of course, I need to add to my list the Paris of the South, Gainesville, Florida.
Yeah.
And I need to try their crepes and their amazing coffee. Okay. Well, guys, thanks so much for this episode. I love traveling so much. I know you guys do too. And I know a lot of our listeners do as well and have all kinds of stories about all the places they have traveled. And so please, if you're listening to the show or watching on YouTube, please add your comments. Where have you traveled? Where are you going next? What's your favorite place? And hopefully we can talk about it on the show. But as always, go to switchfly.com and see the rest of the team's great work there. And we will see you on the next episode.
Thanks everybody.
Brandon.
Thanks, Brandon.